Hey, welcome back. In this video, we're going to learn about another extremely important tool for programmers, the for loop. We'll learn how a for loop can loop through an array, accessing each element in that array. This results in cleaner code, as we don't have to write line after line of code to access individual elements of an array manually. So loops are going to allow us to do things much more easily and more efficiently. Let's talk about for loops. The setup of a for loop involves three main stages. First is initialization of a loop variable. Usually, this is an integer, and many times people will call this integer I for index, and usually this loop variable starts off at 0. Next, we decide on a loop condition, which is a Boolean expression. This is what we use to determine whether or not the loop should continue to execute. And finally, we create a statement that will get run each time the loop finishes, and this is known as the loop's update, and it typically involves changing the loop variable, such as adding 1 to it. Here's how it works. First, the initialization happens. The loop variable gets created and is initialized, usually to 0. Next, we check the loop condition for the first time. Here we have our integer I and it's set to 0, and if our loop condition is the expression I is less than 5, this would evaluate to true. If our loop condition evaluates to true, we then execute the loop body, which has its own statements inside. Once the loop body has finished, we then move to the update stage where our loop variable gets updated. In this case, we're adding 1 to it. Then we go back to check the loop condition again. Now our loop variable I has the value of 1, and the Boolean expression 1 is less than 5 is true, so we would execute the body once again, and then update the loop variable again, and so on. Now, as soon as we evaluate the loop condition, and that condition returns false, then we exit the loop, and we've now finished our for loop. So what does this look like in code? Well, suppose we have an array of doubles called damage, and it has 5 elements inside. Now let's say we want a loop that will execute 5 times. Here is our for loop. We use the keyword for, followed by parentheses, with 3 statements inside. The first statement is the initialization. We declare an integer called I, and this is our loop variable. We initialize it to 0. The next statement is our loop condition. We use the Boolean expression I is less than 5. So each time we evaluate this Boolean expression, if I is less than 5 evaluates to true, we will execute the loop body again. The third statement in the parentheses is the update. Here we're increasing I by 1. Notice there is no semicolon on the update. All this is followed by a body with statements inside that will run each iteration of the for loop. So here we're creating a variable of type double called damage, and we're assigning it the value in the array at the index I. So whenever this body gets executed, whatever the value of I at the time, that's the index that we're going to use to access an element in the array called damage. So the very first iteration of the loop, our loop variable I will have a value of 0. This means that when we evaluate the loop condition, I is less than 5 will be true because 0 is less than 5. Next, we execute the loop body. So we have this variable of type double called DMG, and we're assigning it the value of damage at 0 because I is currently equal to 0. Well, the first element in damage has a value of 20.0. That means DMG will currently have the value of 20.0. Once this body finishes, the loop update gets executed, and I now has a value of 1. So the loop condition gets evaluated again, and 1 is less than 5 is true, which means that the body will get executed, and DMG will now have a value of 35.5 because we're assigning it the value of damage of 1, which is the second element in the array, and that has a value of 35.5. Once this body finishes, the update is executed once again, and now I has a value of 2, And then we check the condition again, which evaluates to true. Therefore, the body gets executed. DMG gets the value of 15, which is the third element in the array, and then we increment I again. Now I has the value of 3, and when we evaluate the condition, 3 is less than 5 is true, which means we execute the body, and DMG gets the value of 5.75, the fourth element in the array. And we increment I again. Now I has a value of 4, and the loop condition evaluates to true because 4 is less than 5, so the loop body executes, and DMG gets the value of 6.0, the fifth element in the array, at which point I gets incremented once again, and now it has a value of 5. Now this time we evaluate the loop condition, and 5 is less than 5 is false. And the flow of execution continues at the line just past the loop body. So in summary, we've learned about the for loop and how the for loop can run a certain number of times. This depends completely on our loop condition. We saw that we had a loop index and that we could use that index to access elements of an array. We're going to take advantage of for loops in this project in the videos to come, and we'll quickly see the power that this will give us as programmers. I'll see you in the next video.